Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of Session Share, the Coaches Podcast. My name's Craig Boatsall, and I'm delighted to have Laurie McGinnley as our guest this week. Laurie is an ex-Scotland cerebral palsy international. He was once voted as 10th best player in the world in 2011, and he is a UEFA licensed coach with multiple qualifications relating to football, sport, and mindset. He's head coach and head of club development. How are you doing today, Laurie?
I'm good, thanks. Bit cold. It's -6 in Scotland, so it's but not complaining. That's why we have the heating.
I hear you. It's not much better in New Jersey, America, trust me, mate. So, not a problem at all there. Laurie, tell us about your impressive playing career. Tell us how it got started and then what takeaways did you take from it?
Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me onto the show. I appreciate it. It's great to just chat football for hours and hours if we could. But yeah, it's long. When I was 10 years old, I had variant encephalitis, so I had meningitis in the brain. I was very ill as a child. Um, I was told that I was not going to walk again, talk, very, very ill. But I think the power of mindset, but also the power of, I always love like high performance, but obviously when you're 10, you don't know these things. But the doctors were, they're asking questions, and it was just a simple, procedure that obviously could have went better, but all these things happen. But I was told I had died 3 times in an operating theatre too, which was quite. But these are things I was told later on. The I Through that, going into school, then struggling with concentration, getting told you're quite slow. Obviously, it gave me a boost to try and prove people wrong. About 2000, when it was 2009, 10, I got selected to go to play. I got a letter through from the Child Brain Injury Trust, who recommended me to the kind of SFA disability or para football, and I got basically, it was one of them. You think it's a joke. You don't really look at these things, but I got offered to go and play with the Scotland team. Trained after about 3-4 weeks talking to the disability officer, who was Stuart Sharp, convincing me. I went up to Stirling, and I loved it. But because there's different classifications. Classified 5 to 8. I was a classified 8, which is minimal. I don't know. Basically, I've got a hidden disability, you would call it. From there, I trained, loved it. Then a week later, I was in Largs, played there, and then about 2 weeks later, I was in Finland, and probably -40 degrees, But it was. But I learned the international football, but also learned to be humble, to learn that standards are there for a reason. There's rules. You need to have the right t-shirt as much as that is. You have your shirt tucked in. These are the biggest things. But from there, 2009 Intercontinentals in Holland. 2010 was the European Championships in Glasgow. And that was in Tory Glen. So some of the listeners will know, but that was the big centre in Glasgow, where we played England in the 5th and 6th playoff, and we beat them. It was a great result, but I always remember the advice. It was our coach said the Royal Infirmary's up the road, which basically means the hospital's up the road. But obviously, we didn't really understand what that meant. But it meant just give it everything. 2011, you're right. I don't know if I was the 10th best player, but I was in the top 10 at some point. Hopefully, near the top rather than the bottom. But and then I missed out the Paralympics due to an injury, but also I wish I had my time again. I wish I got myself fitter. I got myself mentally stronger, because I think when you're young, you want to try and be everything, and you actually have to look at what you're actually good at and what you're not so good at. 2012, 2013, Portugal, that was World Championships. And then 2014, I think I just maybe fell out of love with the game, but I just didn't want to play anymore. So, but 5 years. But the biggest thing I learned was, if you train hard and you work hard, you get somewhere. And I think just have to look at, I think the biggest honour is playing for your country. So from there, it's always been a dream to play football, but you don't get that every day. So I'm living my own dream, but also I'm hopefully living someone else's dream when I was playing.
It's amazing stuff. And one of the things that I hear from your journey is like, and you mentioned it briefly yourself as well, about like a real strong mindset that helped you obviously overcome some of the things in your early career. Helped you. How did you get that? Was that from like a coach? Was that from parents, or was that like different avenues?
Um, Probably grandfather. He was the biggest influence in my life. Before he passed away, it's actually quite a funny, not passing away, but the story. The year before he passed away, he took me to play snooker every week, and I was terrible. I was terrible. I was really bad at it. But every week he beat me and beat me. But every week I was getting better and better and better. And then the week before, he went to hospital. I beat him on a black ball, and he said that's what it is. It's never giving up on these things. So that's the thing. And then before he passed away, he says, always be proud of what you can achieve. I'm so proud of what you've done. And when he passed away, it was probably one of the hardest days of my life. But yeah, mindset's always been a big thing. Maybe a university, didn't have that. I had a strong mindset, but probably the second year when I failed in one of my exams, I was probably thinking, right, I can actually, this is easy. When actually you can reflection is probably the biggest part of it. But mindset. I think in the last maybe 5 to 10 years, I've learned that you can actually improve your mindset by just doing small tasks. Like the one task of like getting your bed ready, or going to big breakfast, or even saying hello, to your partner in a good morning. You know what I mean? I think it's just small things like that make such a big difference. But I think the biggest part of my mindset is actually Simon Sinek, and he had the book The Infinite Mindset, and I think it's really great because you can have that finite versus infinite, so growth versus fixed. But if you can have the infinite mindset of, do you know what, I'll continue to do that forever, because there's going to be times where you want to say no or you want to give up, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's human nature. But I think as the years go on, you learn how to control your to be a bit more emotional intelligent. Like the chimp paradox, but if someone cuts you off in the road, everyone gets angry. Well, that person might have a bad day, or they could be a learner driver or something like that. But we're all in the same situation. But having that mindset of improving yourself by 1%, like a to-do list. I've got to-do list of 10 things, and I have that mindset of I need to get 7 of these things done. As a to improve my my why, basically, and the kind of the best way to think about it.
It's true. Mindset is definitely something that as has developed over time. Uh, since I've been coaching now. I've had the privilege of coaching like 20 plus years. And over the past 5 years, I've grown to understand it more. And stuff like experts and like knowledgeable people like yourself have been able to bring it more to the forefront of coaches. Speaking of that, with your like impressive player career, um, what helped you prepare to be a coach? Was it a natural progression, like you stopped playing and you just wanted a coach, or was it something a bit more in depth?
Well, one of my biggest heroes is Johan Cruyff. I love but it was Sir Alex Ferguson too, and it was always I loved the way he thinks. Like that legacy of leadership. Adaptation. But I think I loved going back to maybe when I was watching a Champions League game with my grandfather. That was I love to be a coach. I would love to be there one day, and maybe when I got offered to go into like working in the kind of local primary schools as part of my 6th year, like and when I was in schools, and I enjoyed working with learn how to deal with the primary sevens, and then learning how to deal with just basically how to coach children and different ways of dealing with like I don't say the different levels and different abilities of children and young people. But I think I've always been a I think I'm an okay coach, but I think we could always be better. If that's the thing, I think we need to be look at. But coaching now is I'm actually my biggest why now is actually I'm looking to go into more technical directing kind of thing and looking at the the academy coaching, the recruitment, talent ID analysis, the kind of technical side, because I think coaching, yes, it's a lot of it's on the grass, but it's actually off the grass. How can you coach yourself to develop yourself? Can you read that extra chapter? Can you listen to the extra podcast? Like, excuse me, when you had Tom Bayer on, I've read his book, I've listened to a webinar with him, starting at home. But that's coaching. Okay, I need, if I'm going to work in like in the youth academy, I need to learn how to coach the tiny tots, the under sevens, the nines, the 11s, the 13s, the 15s, but also coach the coaches. And I think that's the thing. When you get older, you'll learn that everyone gets chucked into the deep end in coaching. Like you've got 24-year-olds running around, and it's like, but I think maybe what I've learned when the progression is in the last maybe 15, 16 years is everyone focuses on all the kids that run away. If you're running a session, like let's say you've got 20, actually see the 4 kids that sit in front of you, focus on them because they're the ones who are maybe want to be there, or the other ones they'll come back in. But it's like sometimes you just have to focus on who's in front of you, instead of what's actually around you, because you have to watch around you, still keep an eye, but focus on the people who are actually in front of you. So therefore, you can actually give them attention because you learn from experience. I love. With things that Saul does, Saul Eisenhurst, the individual coach. I love the things that Ray Power does, deliberate practice, all the webinars. But I think you learn that sometimes we ask a lot of questions and we don't get a lot of answers. Sometimes we actually have to explore, we have to question things ourselves and thinking, right, why is this happening, or why is that happening? I think we, as coaches, we question things, but we sometimes struggle to understand that you're actually more confident than you should be. Just try it. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake. The kids, they don't care if you. I always had a great discussion with someone about, if you, it doesn't matter what license you have, or if you've got an energy, a good energy, and it's fun, then the kids will enjoy it more than a serious session. Like, for example, a kids session could be a game of tag or football tag, or like the King of the Ring, or Player of that kind of game. Chaos. Kids love chaos because this is street games, and therefore, if you can get them on side very quickly, like a theme storytelling, and then I think you've got, yeah, a coach has to be a teacher, but also has to be a storyteller, and also has to be the person who has to work out, okay, why is that? What's wrong with the young, like you're working with a 5-year-old, or the 17-year-old? The 17-year-old might have a bad day at work, bad day at school, like, so yeah, I think we really struggle to ask, how are you? Or how's things? Or trying to work it out. So I think maybe the last 15 years, yes, I loved playing, but I've always loved coaching. But now I want to go and explore the different parts of the game, which I think is more of my skill set.
Yeah, it's funny that the more you get involved in the game and the more you progress up the ladder, like I myself, just like you, I started as a player, became a coach, became a technical director, and so on like that. And I find the more you move up the ladder, it becomes the old allergy of like teach a man to fish. So like now you're working with coaches a lot more. You work them rather than solely on the grass. You're working like a lot of things behind the scenes, trying to get the culture, the environment correct, all these different things that help a player grow and a team grow. With that in mind, how has your philosophy, your coaching philosophy, changed over the years as you've developed from a player and then throughout your coaching career?
It's probably had about 100-page document now into a 20-page document. So I've learned. I think you look at Ange Postecoglou, the way he thinks. Like he's getting slaughtered for trying this style. The first season you at Bielsa, and it's everyone's. You look at Guardiola, how amazing he is. But it was really Cruyff, and then you're looking at the 70s with the total football, and then
Yeah.
you've got the Hungarians, then the Austrians, and it's all everything comes like the long ball, like Russell Martin, a fantastic coach, fantastic manager, but he's getting sacked. But he's stick to the principles. But then you look at Vincent Company, but there's a twist to that. Of it, he speaks German, so which helps. So that, but his style of play, philosophies are great, but I think you you need to see what the club is about first, and then that's the thing, because you look at like the Leipzig, Red Bull model. That's a philosophy in their own, way, but the coach has to fit the philosophy. I think that's happened. That's going to be the next trend. Not trend, it's happening already, but philosophy. I love passing. I love rotations. I love movement. I love the game. But also, seeing you're 1-0 up and you need to defend for the next 89 minutes if you scored after the minute and you need part of the bus, there's nothing wrong with defending. I think I don't think philosophy is the right word sometimes. I think it's actually your methodology or your style of play, or this is how we're going to win. This is how we're going to what we what do we have in possession? What do we not have in possession? How do we get the ball back? And then when we got the ball back, what do we use it? Do we go forward? For example, Red Bull's always vertical. Then you've got maybe patient build up. With other teams, football was going to be, I think, in the trends. It's went from everyone doesn't want to see the long ball. Well, so that might work. What if you've got like a Haaland? Like without that kind of thing, a route like a plan B, or a plan C. Because I think Bielsa said if you have plan A, you should always have a plan A, but you need to make it a better plan A. Like adaptability. But over the last maybe, as I said, 15 years, as I said, I put a document together, but I like to. I think you need to learn if you want to. It depends on what kind of coach you want to be. Do you want to be an under 15s coach, under 17s coach, in the women's game, a first team, a youth? And my thing is, I want to work in the women's game as a kind of technical director on the youth side because that's my skill set. And but what I'm learning is you need to have a basic knowledge of, like, if you're working in the women's game, how the like the physiology, the learning, but also learning about other things, like how do you deal with coaches who maybe in the game for 20 years. But philosophies mean nothing if you don't implement it from a very young age. I think you need to learn how to create 1v1s, 2v2s, 3v3s, all these things. But I think it was they come back to me, Chris van der Hagen, in the Belgian FA, and they had these pitches that was incredible, like 1v1s, 2v2s, and it was a games night or these things. I think everyone focuses on the 12 and above when you really need to focus on the 3 to 12 is a big age group, because the 3 to 12 is the ones for the children, boys and girls, they're similar, with their kind of, they'll start to develop the kind of similar age and a similar ability, but you start to see it on more like for example, a session on the tiny tots, or can you do some toe taps? No, but can you make it a theme like superheroes? So Hulk smashes, again, relate it back to what they're looking to do, but that gives you your philosophy. Like I've got like hundreds and hundreds of pages of philosophies, but that if my philosophy might not match what the club want. So therefore, there's no point in bringing me in. But also, you need to learn that methodology. You need to look at the club methodology, and is it like do they believe in youth? Okay, great. So what's the youth policy? Is it like a Tom Bayer example, start at home, something? Is it a 1v, can you do extra 1v1, so 1-to-1s? I think you just have to learn that methodology and philosophy is just the way you want to play, but also how do you get the buy-in from the players and the board? And that's the thing, excuse me, but also the fans too. And I think fans, you see it like at Rangers at the moment, the managers go through a bit of a tough time, but this football's very, like, we'll start from the back and everything's built, and I'm like, brilliant, but I'd rather go and watch a game that's exciting, and there's nothing wrong with Rangers or Celtic. They're brilliant to watch, but I think methodologies and philosophies can be tweaked, but you have to you need to get some quick wins first before you actually get your point across in some way.
Couldn't agree more. I've always referred to my own philosophy as being organic, as the fact that it will grow as long as I grow. So as I keep developing.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but I think you look at the methodology, but you look at values. If actually, what's your methodology? Club, but what actually is your person methodology? What are you like? What's your values? What do you believe in? And it could be as simple as like timekeeping. You know, you think that's a philosophy because it's like the Lombardi rule. You know, be 10 minutes early. I think that's the biggest thing is everyone looks at the pitch, but it's actually a philosophy of life. You know, what do you believe in? And therefore, I think you get more human interaction and human values when you actually build it as a kind of part of the football philosophy. It's actually your values and your standards.
I couldn't agree more. Excellent stuff. And we'll continue this conversation, Laurie, just after a short break from Zencaster. Do you have a story to tell that the world needs to hear? Have you struggled with reaching new audiences who are engaged with your story? It might be time for you to start a podcast. Let me tell you about a platform we use here at Session Share. Zencaster makes it super easy to produce a high quality broadcast with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes ums, ahs, you knows, and 22 other speech patterns. Zencaster makes it super easy to produce a podcast that sounds great. Ready to tell your story? Check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencaster. Welcome back, and we're going to talk now about a big passion of Laurie's, and that's player development. Laurie, you've had a very varied coaching career. You've coached both males, females, amateur, professional, and disabled players. What rewards you the most of working with such a different array of people?
Well, I think it's just the. I think we look at winning as like 1-0, 2-0, 3-0. We actually the player development could be the person who scored 5 goals and then 3 months later they've got 20 goals. You know, like we look at these things, or the when you're working with maybe visual support. You know, the your player development could be the person. You know, the person development, like they could be maybe have traits of autism or they've got additional support, and you could literally be like working with the the player and I was a parent, you know, in the stands, you know, and they might be in the top, and then the week below, the week after, they could be. So they stand 10, you know, like the row 10, they're in row 7, they're in row 5, and see after 6 weeks that they're on the pitch. That's a huge one. That's a player development. There's also person development. And I think we need to look at more holistical approaches of, you know, academies, you know, but also player approaches, but can we make it player centered, person centered? Because I think you look at like the biggest dropouts usually like through maybe some bad coaching, or it could be to do with pressure, or it could be to do with friends, or a lot. But player development is all about can we improve them by that 1%, 2%, and also they might not make it. As I said, you look at the new documentary on Sky Sports. It was really interesting, but chasing the dream. But it's like 0.01% make it as footballers or professional. Yeah, but you look at 99.9% who don't make it, but they might not make it as professional. They might make it as amateur, or they might make it as semi-pro, or they might be a coach, or they might be working in the fire department, or you know, a teacher. But life skills, I think we need to look at how do we develop the life skills first, you know, and make it very much person centered. Because also another thing would be the player might that hour and a half might be the only time that they actually get out of the house, or they could be second fiddle. You know, like maybe their brother or sister, or you know, a family member is has like swimming, so they have to get up early. You know, like so they're only getting that time. So also the biggest thing maybe player development is socializing and making sure that everyone you learn the how to obviously work with the players you're working with, but player development is all about just making sure that they're a little bit happier, or you can work on the problems that they have, or improving their. It could be as simple as the 10 minutes after training, working on a bit of finishing. That's the player development side, but also the person centered. And giving them, you know, like if we give them, and like some players will love analysis, some won't, some will love nutrition, some won't. But you need to learn. It's all about working. What do they want? You know, have it like Chris Ramsey says. It's like you need to have that strength based approach. What are we doing well? instead of like going into a club, what are we not doing well or what's wrong? It's just we've got a striker, like let's say the build up is brilliant and the striker can't finish. Okay, well, why is the striker not finishing? Is their movement half a yard too slow, half a yard too fast? Is the ball in swinging, out swinging? Is it's just small things like this. But as you get older, you learn these things, from player. But as a coach, you see I think everyone looks at data, and data's great, and it helps. It gives you evidence, but it's your eye is always the number one thing of like, oh, actually, that's the reason. And something as simple as saying, "Well done, you done brilliant today." Leave it like that. But everyone goes, "You've done great, but you could do this," and I'm like, "No, just or you've done brilliant." Yet we'll get there, and the power of yet. I think that's the thing, a mindset you talk about with player development and people development. I think we struggle really to praise, instead of saying we've done well. Is well, you could do better, and I think that's the biggest thing. Is like you look at the player journey on the way back. Maybe a parent says, "What was your score? How did you play?" I don't want to talk about it. Oh, that's not good enough, and it's like that. Biggest thing I've learned. I've got a 2-year-old, but you see these things. There's a lot of podcasts, a lot of people out there, but I think we look at it as let the child talk first. If they want to talk about, they don't want to talk about the game. You don't need to talk. So they say, "Well, I want to go for food." Cool, that's it, and that's it. That might be they might come out. They might open up to you a bit more about like why am I not playing or all this. But again, we need to look at how we educate parents, how do we educate children, educate people around us. But I think we just need to learn how to educate ourselves more on being a bit more emotionally intelligent when it comes to player development. Like technical, tactical is great, but I think the biggest thing we're working with children is the technical and tactical side, but the social side of how to develop that. How do we get them running into the gate, into the pitch? How do we get that? Is it because the coach is there 20 minutes early or is prepared? Again, preparation is the biggest thing. You need to be prepared for a session that might have 20 kids or 15 or 7, and you just have to make sure that you learn that the player development part of that. Let's see if you get 7 kids, brilliant. You can do it more time for everyone else. You know what I mean, like the individuals. So therefore, you can still do an hour and a half session, but the session across the finisher might just be into mini goals now. Just adapting it, and making it as easy as you can for them. So therefore, they have that smile at the end of the session, unless they lose, which is always a pain sometimes in the end of the game. But you learn that these things will happen.
I 100% agree. From what I got from that was it's about the attention to detail and how you manage a player as well, or better the way of putting it is probably to manage a person. So it's understanding what they need at the right time. As you say, like we've always been taught that feedback sandwich, but sometimes maybe we only need the positive. We only need the ham. We don't need the bread, if you know what I mean. So like sometimes they do, and that's some really good advice there. Speaking of advice, what's the best advice that you've been given in your either playing career or your coaching career?
Yeah, you've got 2 years in one mouth. Listen more. Listen. Be more. I like to talk, as you know, but I like to. I love to. You can only get. I think it was just like another quote was, "If you want something, you find a way. If you don't, you find an excuse." But I think it was Jim Rohn, and he said it. And the advice I've always been is don't see getting up. See if you are working to 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and then getting up at 6 every day. You're going to kill yourself. You're going to hurt yourself. You're going to. There's no point in doing these things. So I think the early bird works if you're going to bed at 10 o'clock at night. And up at 6. But I think always the advice is always just be yourself. What can you do to improve yourself? But also just what are you good at? And then I think you need to network. That's another thing. You need to just look at. But everyone you look at now is everyone's focused on special. I think specialized coaching is going to be the next kind of trend of different. Like you've got the substitution coach like Sammy Landa. You've got the throwing coach Thomas Grunberg. I think I've butchered his name, but yeah, but apologies. But the idea is, I think everyone's looking then like sporting directors. It's brilliant, but there's so many job titles out there and so many different roles. But my advice is always, what are you good at? And go see first team. You might never get to a first team. You might only be under 15s coach. What's wrong with being the best under 15s coach in the country? And that's the thing. It's we always want to when we're comfortable. That's when we actually are probably our worst because we're actually you need to be learning how to deal with stress. But the stress of 3 out of 10, and then you've got a person who's maybe had a family member who's ill or something like that. It's a different kind of stress. But we need to learn that you have to focus on. I think it's the one in the airplane. Put your mask on first and help everyone else. We really struggle to. Everyone wants to help everyone else around them when they actually struggle to. The person who you need to speak to is right in front of you, a mirror. But no, I think it's two ears and one mouth. Just listen to other people, but also take advice. But I think you need to narrow down your network of people who are actually in the same industry or a different industry. So I love learning about youth development and child development. So I'm more working and talking to people there, but I'm also looking at technical directors. What's your role? All right, cool. So let's say I talk to you, Craig, about your role. Then I talk to another technical director. It's a totally different. It's a similar role, but a different job description. But I want to learn. Okay, but why is that happening, or how's this happening? And see, I think people are so scared of actually sometimes reaching out to, I hate the word, more elite people. But if you don't, I'll send a message to maybe 3, 4 people a week on my LinkedIn. But I would say 90% of the time I don't get an answer back, and I'm okay with that. I think people are like, well, why is he not answering me back, or why is they taking so long to get back to me? People are busy in January, obviously, but people are just busy. If someone doesn't get back to you for 2 weeks, don't take it hard. Don't harass them. I think one message is good. Two, yeah, okay, you're fine. Three, I would just delete your profile. So at that point, so
That right there, Laurie, is some really good advice. We're just going to take a short break and we will wrap up the episode. Do you need fresh ideas for your football, soccer training? Then follow Session Share on YouTube and X. Our handles can be found in the show description. Session Share, for coaches, by coaches. So, Laurie, we at Session Share like to give a little bit of flavour at the end of the episode to kind of give a good understanding of like where you came from and how you grew up and so on. So, my question for you is, what's your favourite moment in sports? It can be anything as a player, a fan, a coach.
I probably get two, if that's okay, just the really quick
Who's
ones.
fine
But
by me, yeah.
it was probably the when we beat England. That was probably the for myself, with the family, and it was a 1-0 game, but it was just like that's the first time Scotland had beaten England in a long time, So it was and we were in Cyprus for 2 weeks, where we were prepared, we were ready to go. I think if we had another year, I think we would have probably done. Probably could have beaten the Dutch. Probably got better, but probably that's just for a personal one, but I probably seen my 2-year-old son kick a ball. Like that's the memories of like, and you see everyone has a phone out. I just love the moment. I think, oh, this is great. Like is he kicking a ball? He's kicking outside. He love and. I'll never micromanage my son to go into a football. He just loves footballs and launches them and kicks them and everything. But I think the biggest thing is probably personal, but also how do you, as a parent, how can you just cherish moments more? Live the moment, because we're very much everyone's so busy with social media, with jobs and all that. See if you got half an hour with your child or something? Actually, go and maybe just have a conversation with them, or just have that half hour playing, and they'll love that more than you spending an hour on your phone. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, I think we just need to. The best thing is always just to be in the moment and actually just live your life a bit more.
100% agree. Thank you very much for this, Laurie. It's been a great episode. I've really enjoyed our chat, and I'm sure our listeners will agree. That's about it we have for Session Share, the Coaches Podcast. Thank you once again, Laurie McGinnley, for joining us. Be sure to get in touch across all of our socials to offer your opinions on everything that we've discussed today. You can find the social media platforms we use in our podcast description, as well as, if Laurie, you're okay with it, we'll put down your Twitter information so people can follow you as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you again, Craig.
Oh, you're welcome. This has been Session Share, the Coaches Podcast. Thank you for listening, and thank you for coaching the beautiful game.